There's something you haven't thought about today. Not really, not deeply. Not while brushing your teeth. Not while scrolling through your phone. Not while making plans for tomorrow, next week, next year. And yet it sits in the corner of every room you enter, as quiet as air, as heavy as fate. You are going to die. No metaphor, no exaggeration, no poetic flourish. Just a fact, cold and simple, like stone under your feet. And you know this. You've always known it. But knowing isn't the same as realizing. And realizing isn't the same as accepting. And even acceptance isn't the same as acting like it's true. Most people walk through life like they're rehearsing for something that never premieres. They treat their days like drafts, as if they'll get to revise them later, as if life will pause and wait for them to get their shit together. But the world doesn't wait. The sun doesn't ask if you're ready before it sets. You think you have time. That's the biggest lie. You think you'll start the real work later. You think you'll say the important things tomorrow. You think the person you were meant to be is still a few versions away. And so you delay your purpose in favor of comfort. You numb your discomfort in favor of distraction. You postpone growth in favor of approval. You live like you're immortal, even though you're made of dust. And when death finally taps you on the shoulder, there will be no more time to figure it out. No more time to apologize, to begin, to change. The version of you that dies, that will be the final version. It will not matter what you could have been, only what you chose to be, only what you did with the time you were given. You'll keep playing a character you no longer recognize, smiling when you feel hollow, chasing what doesn't matter, pretending you're okay just to fit into a version of life that was never built for someone like you. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the life you lived wasn't yours at all. It was borrowed from expectations, from fear, from everyone else's opinions, but your own. So let's begin here, where it actually matters. Not with tips, not with tricks, not with bullet points or fake optimism. Let's begin with the truth. You won't be here forever, and the sooner you face that, truly face it, the sooner you can start living like it means something. You won't be here forever, but you act like you will. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, but you said the same thing yesterday. You keep moving, but you're not going anywhere. You're just looping through habits that don't serve you, relationships that drain you, thoughts that sabotage you. And the worst part? You call it normal. You call it life. But normal is not a virtue. Normal is the sleepwalk that happens when truth becomes too heavy to carry. Look at your day. Really look. How much of it did you give away without noticing? To scrolling, to worrying, to small talk, to replaying things that are already over, to imagining futures that will never arrive. You burn hours like they're infinite, while your soul quietly rots in the background, starving for presence, aching for depth, begging for meaning. You've convinced yourself that this is just how things are, that everyone's tired, everyone's busy, everyone's just trying to make it through the day. But what if that's not true? What if you've simply adjusted to a life that doesn't match who you are? What if the real problem isn't your job or your circumstances or your schedule? What if it's you, the version of you that accepted this life as enough, the version of you that gave up your hunger in exchange for security, the version of you that mistook surviving for living? That part of you that's been quiet lately, the part that wants more, the part that aches when you see someone else doing what you love, being who you wish you could be? That part isn't your enemy. It's your alarm clock. It's the signal that you've stayed asleep for too long. But instead of listening, you label it as ungrateful. You bury it in productivity. You distract it with goals. You pretend it's gone. And then you wonder why nothing feels real anymore. Why you can't feel joy without guilt. Why you can't rest without restlessness. Why everything feels so muted. It's because you've muted yourself. Piece by piece, compromise by compromise, lie by lie. You are dying, but not just physically. You are dying spiritually, emotionally, creatively. Every time you ignore your truth, a little part of you fades. And the world keeps spinning. It doesn't care how long you wait to wake up. It doesn't pause while you sort yourself out. It moves on, with or without you, and one day you'll realize you weren't waiting for the right moment. You were just afraid to start, afraid to fail, afraid to live so fully that you might finally feel alive. You waste your life not because you want to, but because you've forgotten what it means to be truly awake. And waking up, that takes more than a plan. It takes honesty. It takes courage. It takes grief. Because to wake up, you have to first admit that you've been asleep. And that's the hardest part. There is a silence that follows you when you live against yourself. It's not the peaceful kind, the kind that comes after a long day or in the company of nature. It's the heavy silence, the one that creeps in when you realize that the voice inside you has been whispering for years and you haven't been listening. At first it was subtle, a dull ache when you smiled at the wrong job offer, a faint sense of betrayal when you agreed to something that didn't sit right, a glance in the mirror that lasted half a second too long because something in your eyes felt unfamiliar, like you were watching yourself perform, but you brushed it off. You told yourself everyone feels that way sometimes. You told yourself to be grateful, to be realistic, to stop overthinking, and each time, a part of you disappeared behind the curtain of your excuses. You called it growth. You called it maturity. But in truth, you were learning how to live smaller, quieter, safer. And now you wonder why everything feels numb. Because this is what happens when you betray your own voice long enough. It starts to believe you don't want to hear it anymore. It stops trying to save you. It stops fighting back. And in its place, you inherit a hollow kind of peace, one that looks calm from the outside but feels like slow death on the inside. And you carry it everywhere. It's in the conversations you can't stand having, the meetings that make your soul wilt, the weekends that feel more like anesthesia than rest. It's in the relationships you maintain because they're familiar, not because they're right. It's in the moments where you laugh at the joke, even though your heart isn't in the room. And slowly you forget who you were before you started performing. You forget what it felt like to want something deeply, purely, without shame. You forget how to speak in your own voice because you've been speaking in everyone else's for so long. That's the cost. Not just lost time, not just missed opportunities. The cost is you, and it's not always dramatic. It doesn't always come in the form of a breakdown or a crisis or a sudden revelation. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's just waking up and feeling nothing. No anticipation, no joy, no hunger, just existence. A dull repetition of yesterday's choices, painted over with fresh distractions and cheap goals. And yet, somewhere, beneath it all, there's still a pulse, faint, but there, a memory of the person you were supposed to be, the one who wasn't afraid to feel too much, to try too hard, to want something real. You see them sometimes, in flashes, in music that hits too close, in dreams that don't make sense but leave you aching, in moments of stillness when the noise dies down and you remember, even for a second, that you were meant for more than this. That version of you isn't gone. They're buried, under responsibilities, under fear, under years of playing it safe. But they're waiting, not for the perfect moment, not for a sign, just for you. To stop lying, to stop pretending, to stop settling, to finally say, I'm still here, and I'm not going to waste what little time I have left pretending this is enough. Because the truth is, you won't be here forever. And the scariest part isn't dying, it's reaching the end and realizing you never truly lived. There comes a point where reflection becomes a trap, where sitting with your thoughts turns into a form of avoidance, where analyzing every corner of your pain becomes more comfortable than risking change. You tell yourself you're preparing, processing, evolving, but deep down you know the truth. You're hiding behind language, behind potential, behind the illusion that you still have time, but you don't. Not in the way you think, not in the way you pretend. You keep waiting for something to happen, for life to shift on its own, for someone to give you permission, for clarity to strike like lightning. But no one is coming. No one is going to live your life for you. No one is going to save you from the habits you refuse to break. No one is going to drag you out of bed at 5 a.m., make you have the hard conversation, or push you to say the words you swallowed for years. That's your job. And until you accept that, you will stay stuck, trapped in a loop of knowing and not acting, feeling and not changing, wanting and not becoming. The truth is, the clock is not waiting for you to become brave. Every second you spend doubting yourself is already gone. Every day you delay your decisions is added to the pile of forgotten time. You don't get those moments back. You don't get to press rewind. And the idea that there will be a better season, a more perfect version of you, a more convenient excuse to start, that idea is killing more dreams than failure ever has. Most people live their entire lives inside cages they don't even see. And the bars aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they're made of comfort, of routine, of low expectations, and you learn to decorate the cell, to call it safety. You convince yourself it's responsible, mature, even noble, to sacrifice your joy in the name of stability. But what good is safety if it costs you your soul? What good is a job, a home, a relationship if you're quietly vanishing inside it? You were not born to be half alive. You were not made to blend in, to obey, to shrink into the shape of someone else's approval. You were made to wake up in the middle of your own life and feel it burning through your chest. You were made to look back on your deathbed and say, I didn't hold back. I didn't waste the miracle. Because that's what this is, a miracle. This body, this moment, this chance. The fact that you're even here, breathing, watching, listening, feeling, it defies reason. Billions before you never got this moment. Millions right now are losing theirs. But you're here, and yet you act like it's nothing. You act like it's disposable, like your days are recyclable, like you have an infinite supply of opportunities to waste. So what now? What do you do with this truth? You decide. You choose. You draw a line, not a dramatic, unrealistic fantasy, but a line between the self you've been tolerating and the self you were meant to become. You stop seeking approval. You stop waiting for signs. You stop numbing your discomfort with temporary highs and shallow goals. And you begin. You begin showing up differently. You begin by saying no to what exhausts you and yes to what ignites you. You begin by being honest, brutally honest about the ways you've been sabotaging your own life. And you take one step, not a leap, not a transformation, just a step. Because all it takes is movement. All it takes is enough pain to stop pretending and enough courage to do something about it. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look back one day and realize that this was the moment you stopped dying a slow death and started living with urgency. That this was the day you looked mortality in the face and said, you don't scare me anymore because I'm finally alive.